issued the directive simply because so many schools and school districts were turning to the federal government and asking them about what they should do. Believe him or not, I don't know if I believe him oftentimes, it is a sad commentary, I think, on education and the state of education in America today when local school officials turn to the federal government and ask them, what should we do? It's frightening, isn't it? You know, I kind of doubt when our founding fathers decided to put this great country of ours together, they turned to King George and said, what should we do? I highly doubt that when our ancestors stretched across this great country of ours, they turned to the federal government and said, may I? I highly doubt that when Steve Jobs decided to create the Macintosh and the ubiquitous iPhone and iPad, that he turned to the federal government and said, may I? Did you hear the comment from Nancy Pelosi the other day? Nancy Pelosi said that Apple was only founded, the iPhone was created by the federal government. Sound familiar to a comment that Barack Obama made a few years ago, telling small businesses in the country that you didn't build that? This is the state of the world in which we live. I doubt that when the chicken wants to cross the road, it turns to the federal government and says, may I? Now, it may turn to Michelle Obama and say, can I be part of the school lunch program? But I guarantee you, it's not asking permission to cross the road. We are fighting local control of government and education. That's what you'll hear from these candidates this morning. A great group of candidates who are dedicated to wresting control of education away from the bureaucrats and putting it in the hands of you. Our first speaker this morning will be Lisa Cummins. I've known Lisa for quite some time. I have to share with you a personal story about Lisa. A couple of years ago, she said, hey Rod, could I bring a group of my students by to your station and ask you some questions about all kinds of topics? And I said, sure. So here comes Lisa, and I think there are about 4 or 5 students with her. And they came in and they asked me all kinds of questions about the Constitution, about liberty, about broadcasting. These were some of the brightest students I think I've ever had to deal with. They just asked some very compelling questions. So she is, to say the least, qualified, I think, to serve on the state school board. She is a candidate in the 11th district. She is married and the mother of 5. She is one of those Common Core rebels who I love in this state. She's fighting the intrusive policies of our federal government. She was part of Glenn Beck's We Will Not Conform event that took place a few years ago. And among other things, she supports parental authority in a child's education. Ladies and gentlemen, a candidate for the school district in District 11, Lisa Cummins.
Thank you, Rod. That was a great opportunity. Thank you, Rod, for the introduction, and thank you for Brian Holiday for setting up this event. It's a milestone that we've come here. We've had many events like this here in the halls of governors. Almost 227 years ago, the United States Constitution was pieced together, complementing the Declaration of Independence. Our founding fathers looked to the past of lost civilizations, questioning their rise and their fall. They took to the writings of William Blackstone, John Locke, Frederick Bastiat, and, to my favorite, Baron Charles de Montesquieu. One of Montesquieu's quotes is relayed that to become truly great, one has to stand with people, not above them. I would be much more comfortable in front of the podium instead of behind. And I'm honored here to be here with those that are behind me and with you. Since June of 2010, when I first learned of Common Core, what was once a group of a handful of individuals who started speaking out of the warnings of Common Core, we have now grown into thousands of parents and teachers crying out that we are not common and that these policies have failed miserably. What began as just standards grew into an umbrella of policies of violations of the privacy of our children's data, highly unusual amounts of testing, books that would embarrass our grandparents, history that would strip the pride of our heritage, a fattening of shareholders' pockets, and forcing our teachers into absolute obedience to an ever-growing system of dominance and regulation. 2 years ago, I told the State Board of Education that if they wanted my children's data, that a warrant would have to be provided. A warrant never came. And yes, perhaps it's probably a stretch to say so, but the point was made that the data collection that included social, behavioral, psychometric, and over 400 other data points violated my children's right of privacy. And at that time, there wasn't a law that would notify parents of a data breach. Today, thanks to Representative John Notwell, we have such a law, but it is not enough. The Fourth Amendment is still being violated through regulatory rules. And though parents are acknowledged as the primary caretakers of their children's education in both the United States Constitution and the Utah State Constitution, I am very grateful that parents' rights were acknowledged in statute, allowing for parents to opt their children out of an invalidated SAGE testing. These two laws are little examples of small wins we have had along the way, but it hasn't brought us to the big giant leap that we need to get us out of Common Core. In his fourth book of the Spirit of Laws regarding education, Montesquieu relayed that in order to keep a republic, as Benjamin Franklin hoped, one must have a love of virtue, and that it needs to be the principal business of education. And the surest way of instilling it into children is for parents to set the example. Our children are gifts from God. They are not human capital. If we, the people, do not instill this love of virtue, and I would add a love of learning, a despotic government will arise, provide an education that will instill threats and punishments. As we have witnessed these last 6 years, a despotic education system has emerged, and it is threatening our children's future. President Abraham Lincoln quoted that the philosophy taught in the classroom will be the government of tomorrow, and that is clearly evident of today. With the policies in place, our children will not know what it means to pursue their own happiness. But today we have hope. We have a window of opportunity to stand together as Utah State parents and declare that we are common no more. Today, as parents, we have decided that enough is enough, and that our children deserve a happy, healthy environment where love of learning is the normal. No more endless hours of testing, no more inappropriate homework, no more positioning our teachers in an us against them situation. Enough is enough. We are common no more. It is time to rebuild with what we know has been time-tested with liberty-based principles and values. And I can all but guarantee that you will see your children, and I will see my children, soar. We as parents and educators got this. We know what to do. To Governor Herbert, to Utah State legislators, to state school board members, and to current candidates, I implore you that now is the time to stand up to federal overreach. Stand up for our children. Stand up for our teachers. Stand up for Utah families now before greater harm is done to our liberty. Thank you.